Oh, sorry. My name's Sarah Cook. I'm the publisher, one of the publishers at McGraw-Hill. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Just a quick couple of housekeeping things. Everybody's on mute. That's because we've got quite a big turnout today, which is great. There is the chat box function down below. So if you've got any questions as we go along, please pop those in. We'll keep an eye on them and answer some as we go, but otherwise we'll have some questions and answers at the end of the session. And the session today is being recorded. Just to let you know, for people who can't come along, they'll be able to watch the recording later. And throughout the presentation, we will have this QR code down the bottom right-hand corner popping up, but if you use the QR code, you'll get taken to an information page about the book. Okay. So Neil, next slide. All right, so we're very, very pleased to announce that the third edition of Project Management in Practice will be in stock next week in the warehouse. And next slide, Neil. I'll just really like to thank Neil and all of our production team. It's been a big 10 months of effort to get this new edition out and into the warehouse. And Neil's going to talk to you mainly about the PMBOK today, but obviously the whole text has had quite a big update. The accompanying website will have over 50 templates, which will be great for students, great job aids to get them started and planning their projects straight away. And there's over 300 figures and 147 tables. Neil's just put a lot of effort into creating a lot of visuals to help students grasp all the concepts more quickly. The book covers the 8 diploma core units and 6 of the diploma electives, so you've got a couple of extras to play with. And we do also map to the certificate for the relevant units of competency in the certificate for. And we're up to now 700 pages of project management expertise. So I'm going to hand over to Neil now, and he'll walk you through his presentation. Thanks, Neil.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Well, no, thanks to Sarah and the team as well. They've done a really good job, because I know 300 figures, Sarah, gave you a bit of a headache as a publishing team. So what's changed then? Welcome, everybody. If you've got any questions, just put them in the chat window. And, you know, the ones we can't answer on the call, I'll try and do some FAQ next week over them as well to get your questions answered, and we'll get that circulated, Sarah. So what's changed then? Quite a lot in the book. We've basically extended the Agile Scrum Approach chapter, made that more comprehensive based on a combination of the Scrum Guide and Scrum Study IP. We'll talk more about that later. We've changed the organizational structures chapter now, basically rewritten that. We kept the culture bit of it and expanded that, but we also added in quite a chunk on organizational change management. And I think those who are practicing project management will realize why that is there. It's also made now an appearance in PMBOK version 7 as well, which is good because we had it in our 2E as well as the free current version. PMBOK have now recognized the significance of that. It's also one of the electives as well. It's one of those 6 electives which we can cover off within this book as well. All the governance stuff has been brought together in the new chapter as well. So the governance is kind of distributed across the book, but it's now been brought together into one chapter. I do still cover it where it's relevant in the start of all the other chapters, but again, as an elective and as a more comprehensive topic, I've brought that information together and supplemented it with additional, again, visuals and tools to get people thinking about this more seriously as a student cohort. We've got a new chapter on execution. So we've got one on closure. We've got all the planning stuff in the middle. Therefore, it sounds a bit like the structure of PMBOK version 7. And again, I'll talk about that on another slide for that coming up. But we've kind of bridged it, just like PMBOK have doing, and a lot of the other project managers are doing, between the 6th edition and the 7th edition. Okay, and again, I'll cover off why in a minute, because it's interesting what they've done. And, you know, as a lot of people are telling us, they're actually using both texts. Okay, and we'll go through the reasons why in a minute. And then we've got another new chapter to cover off the complex project management, okay, which is, again, is a new elective. Sarah's asked me to mention that I did actually work with PwC to bring some of that content together for the unit of competency in complex project management as well. So we tried to unpack that, come up with a generic framework that you can apply, and then within the framework, I've picked on certain IP that seems to be prevalent in the industry as tools and techniques to help us through that framework. Okay, so again, it's based around a mini framework, that chapter. So that is basically the kind of the additions. What's gone is down the right hand side of the slide there. We got rid of organizational structures. I think that's a bit dated now. We tend to use that language quite openly anyway. The performance chapter, which was the old chapter 11, has been distributed across the book. Okay, some of it appears as communications, some of it as just general performance and measurement in other chapters like quality. The EVM has been dropped. Okay, that was really a hangover from, and not a complete hangover from probably Larson. It's something that I don't think we actively get enough time to teach as a subject. You know, it's almost a day's teaching in its own right. So we just left some brief links to the earned value management content, okay, in there, but we've taken the bulk of it out. And then chapter 20, the old chapter 20, should I say, has been removed, the career paths one, because again, I think that was a bit dated. And I think you all as trainers put your own, you know, twist on that anyway in terms of your own job and work experience as you bring that into the course. So that is the new structure. Any questions on that before we kind of flip over into more detail?
No questions coming through at the moment, Neil.
Okay, all right. Okay, so there's the book chapters down the left-hand side. Okay, and then on the right, we've got the approximate mapping to the elective and core units in, well, those are the diploma codes actually, so in the diploma for this screen. Okay, so like I say, we've kind of expanded it. We've got, like I say, this managed complex projects down here. We've got things like the governance now as a separate chapter covering that whole unit of competency. And then additional things, we've probably got enough information in there now to cover the lead and manage organizational change and the facilitate continuous improvement as well. Okay, so it does give you now a total of, you know, 6 electives to choose from across the book, in addition to the, you know, the core project management units. Okay, so quite a a mixture there to cover those units of competencies. All right, so PMBOK 7 versus PMBOK 6. I'll get to your question in a minute, John. So PMBOK 6, as we know, is predictive, knowledge-heavy, process-based. Okay, for those who've picked up PMBOK 7, it's more of that generic approach. They've taken very much like we have in our book, really. We're really just introducing a number of tools and techniques which you can apply to a number of the approaches. Okay, it is knowledge light. Obviously, the page count will come on to a minute, but the new version of PMBOK is substantially shorter than the 6th edition, and it is moving towards those soft skills or attributes of a project leader rather than the project manager, I guess we could say, that we expect people to now encompass in the work that they're doing. Okay, and again, I'll just expand on that in a minute. So what we've got basically, you know, even though we may be structured by, you know, knowledge area chapter for some of the book, you know, it is the tools and techniques for generic application of project management. It's knowledge rich. We try to put lots of examples in there throughout the text, and then there's those call outs for, you know, the in practice type call outs where we've gone a bit more detailed in certain aspects. Okay, and it's very much practice based because obviously that's where I come from, is practicing this. Okay, so it's very much practice based still, very practical sort of guide. Okay, rather than pure theorist. All right, so there we go. There's the unpacking. Down the left at the top there, we have the 12 principles. Okay, so they're more behavioral implied, they're within us. Okay, more experiential based type concepts that we may be dealing with, maybe coached in people and rather than, you know, explicitly taught. Okay, we can teach elements of them, but I think, you know, the way PMI will package in these are things that we, you know, have to build and develop in the practice of project management. So, you know, whether we can teach that directly, you know, is another argument, but, you know, it is applicable though to all approaches, you know, whether you're using, you know, the more predictive life cycle based, or, you know, maybe an agile scrum iterative based approach or something in between. So, you know, the principles are there to guide behaviors, like they're saying. You know, we've had elements of that in the book previously, but we kind of pulled it out a bit more in the leadership and teams chapter and some of the introductory material as well. That's supported by the 8 performance domains, okay, which I guess are kind of restructuring what were the knowledge areas. Okay, these are more factual. Okay, they're based in knowledge, they're relevant and can be tailored to all approaches, or certainly elements of them. And if anybody's picked up the 7th edition, you'll find that there's a lot more techniques that have come from the agile camp, as I call it, that have just been introduced now, that these are techniques that you can use, you know, not just in agile, but maybe, you know, switch them over to a more traditional approach and vice versa. Okay, they containerize knowledge, so they don't describe and explain the knowledge. To me, these just containerize knowledge. You know, they do talk about the PMP and the management plans, and that's about it. There's no real specific detail there. And to me, that's why we still need the 6th edition of PMBOK. And there's still a need for that 6th edition of PMBOK. Because if people do want more detail on the knowledge, you know, if it's PMBOK or whether it's our book, you know, giving a practical version of that, we still need to teach people as project managers. They still need a working understanding of all the tools and techniques and knowledge of project managers. It reveals practice of application of project management, but it doesn't get practical, if you see what I mean. That second part of the book, the performance domains. So again, we've tried to capture those either within a chapter uniquely or across a number of chapters because of the way they've been structured. For example, you know, in PMBOK 7, you've got that planning performance domain, and it does encompass a lot of the planning from what was traditionally planning, you know, 9 of the 10 knowledge areas. Okay, so we're still covering the material off, even though it's not packaged in a mirror image. And I'm not saying that's, you know, PMBOK's got the right presentation anyway, but it's not a mirror image of PMBOK. Okay. All right. So we do cover a number of approaches to project management in the book. Okay, we've, like I say, if we start at the top there, we've got the, you know, the basis of the text really, and a lot of text, which is that traditional life cycle approach, you know, whether it's a heavy application of it or a light application of it. Okay, you know, and in the methodologies we introduce in the book, you know, we talk about praxis and Prince 2. For the heavier ones, obviously it can be tailored, and then in the light ones, a brief sort of explanation of tailoring and introducing P3 Express, which is just a light version of a project management protocol. Where we've got frequently changing requirements, or, you know, often and frequent delivery according to customer requirements, then again we've covered off the Scrum elements or the Agile elements. Okay, you know, there was always a little bit of safe and lesson there. We've left that in there, but really bolstered up the Agile Scrum based on scrum.org. Okay, and a little bit of Agile PM, or as it was known, DSDM in the industry a few years ago. We do also cover then the continuous improvement side of the house as well. Okay, so as a project manager, I think you need to be versed in all these 4 different approaches. So we do cover the continuous improvement side of the house, just expanded out a little bit more in the quality chapter with the PDCA and the DMAIC, so the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or the Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control, if you're from a Lean Six Sigma background. And that's why it allows us to cover the continuous improvement elective, because we've got that material in the book. And then obviously at the bottom, we've got kind of the Agile or Wagile approach, the hybrid approach, where we basically take and discuss in the methodologies chapter, you know, elements of, you know, maybe doing traditional planning, but more agile delivery. Okay, and that is the hybrid approach. Okay, so going back to the 2 books then, I think, you know, there is a need for both. And if you look what other ways of teaching it are, they're actually saying that, look, this PMBOK 7 is really an overarching approach. It gives us guidance and good practice and principles. But if you really want the detail and the knowledge, and you are more specifically going after, a traditional predictive type approach, then, PMBOK version 6 is still that same life cycle, which you talk about in some PMBOK 7 for the predictive approach. So it's really giving you the detail behind the predictive approach. That's just one of the several approaches that they cover off in the 7th edition of PMBOK. So do we need, another debate question here, do we need a rewrite of the vet qualification? In my opinion, no. Okay. We need another unit of competency, though, that does cover off specifically an elective on iterative project management, okay, to make it a bit more rounded and complete. Whether that's pure Scrum based or whether it's based on Agile PM. I tend to use a bit of a hybrid, which is Scrum Study, because the IP is free. And if, which is good for students, you don't have to pay for yet another text. With Scrum Study, the Scrum body of knowledge is actually available as a download on their website. So again, it's just about, thinking about how we can make these resources more accessible, maybe, rather than tying them into specific IP. Regardless of the approach, okay, we still need the knowledge. Okay, we still need knowledge of risk, of communications, and how to manage stakeholders, regardless, whether you're using, a continuous improvement approach of DMAIC. We still do a lot of stakeholder management in that. Whether you're using your iterative-based approaches, Agile or Scrum, stakeholder management is built into what we do. Okay, and obviously, in the predictive approach, we take quite a formal, planning-based approach to the identification of stakeholders and the communications which can go to them. So again, I think that knowledge that's in the main bulk of our book and is still in the 6th edition and is hidden within the performance domains of PMBOK 7 is still highly relevant to the industry and to students' knowledge. Like I say, this is basic 101 knowledge that, regardless of the approach, I think, is going to set you off on a good track, really, from a student perspective. Okay, so just to repeat that, really, basically in the slide pack, we'll pass the slide pack around at the end of the presentation as well, Sarah, so people can...
Yeah, great, thanks.
Yeah, so that's really just a map into roughly where we're covering. Yeah, thanks, Nadine. So just to where the content is covered in the 6th edition, mapped to the chapters of our book, and the 7th edition, and where we've kind of covered it, maybe in multiple places in our book. Okay, and like I said, that planning performance domain is still those traditional planning activities. Okay, so that's kind of the mapping from a performance domain knowledge area perspective. The principles are slightly harder. Okay, in the old 6th edition, we had the process groups. Okay, now some of those process groups are actually, if we go back a slide, are actually, within some of the performance domains. You've got that planning, delivery, and measurement. Okay, if you think about what's going there, we initiate, plan, execute, and control. So you've got element of what was the old process groups has now been kind of packaged back into the performance domains. So the project management principles kind of stand alone. They're, like I say, principle-based, behavioral-based, things that make a project manager, to me, into a project leader. Okay, and I think that's where, a lot of our teachings are going, certainly from my perspective, is that we're giving them the knowledge, but then we're kind of having maybe more tangential or deeper discussions about how you actually go about doing this in a real life situation, and building those soft behavioral type skills. Okay, you know what you want to say, but can you say it in that environment in that particular way? Or is there a tool or technique that we can use that maybe can point things out in a more factual, measured way? Okay, so again, it's just about, how we go about applying those knowledge in a working environment. So that's really the principles. I'm going to pause there, Sarah, before we go on.
Yeah.
And just, wind back to here. Maybe it's probably a good discussion slide.
Yeah.
Any questions on the 6th versus 7 and how we've covered it in the book? Maybe just take yourself off mute and ask
I'm not sure if they can take themselves off.
Okay.
So just pop up your hand or put a comment in. There was just that question that came in earlier, which was what your thoughts are behind listing complex project management under the execution chapter.
Yeah, thanks, John. Because to me, it's one of those things that is on the list to change. You might not start off complex, but you might go complex. Okay, I did thinking about putting it right at the front of the book and having that discussion, is this a complex project or not to start off with? So it could have kind of fallen either area. It's just where it landed for me personally. In the structure. It made more sense that, like I say, this is kind of an ongoing monitor and control activity that you're always reviewing projects to see whether they're going to go over that edge and go complex or whether they're just going to stay simple or complicated. According to the Cynefin framework, or some people call it Cynefin framework. It's actually Welsh, it's Cynefin, but the Cynefin framework.
Excellent.
I can't see John's face on the screen. I'm looking at all these little windows.
No, he said totally understood. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John.
I'll assume from no questions coming in at the moment, they're all very happy with the way you approach.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Okay, so Sarah, that's your slide.
Oh yeah, so with the textbook, obviously the textbook's available next week. They're the two prices. For the amount of content you're getting for Certificate 4 and Diploma units, it's very good value. It's actually still currently priced the same as the current edition for the end of the year, so that's good. There's mapping grids available on the Connect site, which comes with the book. So if you're an adopting teacher, you can request access to the Connect site for both the Certificate 4 and Diploma. I'll just point out, I think there are a few higher education colleagues here as well today. And so obviously all this mapping is done behind the scenes, and the book's still very applicable to university courses as well. Nadine's asked for a list of the templates. I do, Nadine, we can send that out as well afterwards. I'll let you know which ones they are. There'll be some basic PowerPoint presentations, one for each chapter, just to assist with delivery. There's some additional case studies on the website as well, and they could be used as summative or formative activities or assessments with your students. And there's the templates, and then there's also a test bank. So that's either in Connect, you could assign questions to your students if your institute uses Connect with the students, or they're available in Word as well, so that you could pop those questions into your learning management system as part of your assessment. With again, that code, so anybody that's here today that's looking for a course book for delivering the Certificate 4 and Diploma or in universities, if you go through there, or if you can't get the QR code working, just pop over to our website and look for the book. You can request an inspection copy. And then anyone that's here just out of interest or is looking for professional resources or references for the workplace, then the book is available for pre-order on Booktopia and Amazon as well. Yes, Nadine, the book will still be available through Vital Source integration as well. So there'll be the McGraw-Hill ebook available through our Connect site, which your sales rep will be able to tell you more about. We do have full LTI integration now, so it can be seamless for the student. They don't have to leave your LMS, or yes, you can integrate the Vital Source. Tony's asked, are the topics covered in the old Chapter 11 incorporated elsewhere?
Yep, so that needs a question. So Chapter 11 is incorporated elsewhere apart from the EVM. So Tony, I have dropped the EVM because I think most of the feedback we got to McGraw-Hill on the text was actually querying all the EVM material in the book. And I think it's one of those things you either need to do well or not do at all.
Thank heavens.
Yeah, so I took it out. There is a few mentions in there as part of, a reporting option for time cost, but no, essentially it's been removed. And I don't think, as far as I know, the diploma doesn't stipulate that you need to show EVM evidence. Okay, you need to be able to forecast, you need to be able to do also reporting of time and cost. But as far as I know, EVM's not in there. Shall I get Gary's question as well while we're at it?
Yeah, sure. And Nadine, Dorothy's online, so she'll make sure she gets in touch with you soon, I'm sure, about the integration.
Okay, so Gary, I've put a little bit more on requirements in the 7th edition. In the 7th edition, in the 3rd edition of our book. I agree. Okay, and I've been pestering Sarah actually about there's a marketplace for a business analysis version of this book. So I actually teach a lot of business analysis. In fact, I've probably taught more business analysis the last couple of years than I've done PMBOK or any project management. And that's the sort of growth industry I've seen it as. I put a little bit more in there. I do agree. I've done all the requirements types now, you know, the general technical sort of overarching requirements and the functional, non-functional requirements. I put all that kind of information in the book. I've beefed up the voice of the customer stuff as well, because, you know, obviously value, customer and requirements are all tied together. So I've kind of beefed up that bit of the book as well.
Mm-hmm. There was just a comment here for Gary from Richard that PMBOK only starts a project once it's been chartered, whereas Prince 2 is far more holistic into business requirements. And you've covered some of Prince 2 as well. So as
cover Prince 2, and my book kicks off from why do we do a project, and we've got that organizational strategy project selection chapter, which talks about the business case, you know, the financial justification for MBV payback, IR, and how that business case gets carried forward to kick off the chartering of a project. So that is definitely all covered in my book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We've had a question about any plans to provide mapping grids for the university courses for year 1. So that's definitely something we can have a look at. I'll talk to my university colleagues about that as well. Thanks, Micah.
Advanced diploma, it would have been in the old advanced diploma, but Nick, I think that the new advanced diploma, as far as I know, has now changed into more of a program management book. So we do have elements of portfolios, programs and projects in there, but it's probably at the, you know, it's at the diploma program level about understanding it as a project leader, rather than going into a full book on portfolios and programs and how we manage those differently. So introductory, yeah, but the advanced stuff probably not, against the new or newer unit of competency that came out a few years ago. It can be scaled, Nick, though, I must admit. You can have that discussion of stakeholders on projects and then just have that discussion about, you know, stakeholders across multiple projects as a program manager. So you can scale it. I think it's just a way maybe you deliver that. But does it explicitly talk about that? And unfortunately not, because that will be another 200-300 pages, Sarah, which I know you wouldn't let me write.
Maybe in the e-text version. Leon's ask, is the mapping completely changed? It is, Leon, just because the book's quite significantly restructured. But if you're using the 2nd edition at the moment, we can look at just doing sort of a bit of a transition guide to help reduce the time you spend mapping the 2E to the 3E. And then we'll just point out which are the brand new chapters. So just another question there, Neil, if you can see.
Yeah, so again, that would be an extra piece of work. So with the APM material, we'd have to do a completely separate mapping. Yeah, I mean, it's effort. I mean, do we do it? And somehow, I don't know if it's an on-sell for McGraw-Hill, because, as you know, doing these mappings is not an insignificant task or amount of time. As much as we'd love to do them, provide them, I think, Sarah, you comment on that? I don't know. Sure.
Yeah, we'll obviously take all these questions. And same with the university one.
Same university one, yeah. No, I completely hear you, but like I say, as you're aware, and that's probably why you're asking, are we going to do it? Because it is a having done a few in the past, it's a chunk of work. Yeah.
We have worn Neil out a bit this year.
It's gone grey.
I think that's all the questions there for the moment.
Okay, shall I continue?
Yeah.
Okay. So the exciting bit for me is there's more. Okay. What I've been doing is actually building out my courseware and training resources and trying to make them saleable. These are things that I've had for 6-7 years and have been sneaking in and getting told off by training organizations not to use. And this is where a lot of the diagrams and stuff came from the book. Actually, originally was this material. Okay, so what I've done is now mapped it, made it, well, we'll map it eventually to the book, but what I've done is matched it to the book. So what we've got now is 21, well, we will have 21 chapters. What I've currently published are the 10 core units of the diploma worth of training materials. So you get a kind of what I've called a compass card, which gives you a summary of the chapter. You then got the detailed facilitator PowerPoints with delivery notes. Okay, and probably about an average anywhere between 60 and 150 PowerPoints per stack. There is a more detailed case study covering all 21 chapters of the book, which is built on the same case study. So it just flows from business case, right the way through to closure. There's a brief quiz, crossword, flashcards, two-sided. So there's all sorts of resources there to support the text, basically. And it's not diploma specific. So if you're from a university, you could literally take those PowerPoint slides and just remove the competency slides that have dropped in there. They're very clear where they are. That they're not sort of embedded in the teaching at all. The competency slides are just so when we've done some material, we then talk about which competencies we covered and what evidence you may provide. And I've put some suggested evidence into the PowerPoints. Okay, obviously you can edit those. So that's just one thing. Like I said, give me a call if you're interested. There's some things on Gumroad. If you just go to project.gumroad, there's some bits available. There's a sample there. I've had to PDF and watermark it, so it's it's not like the real end product, but there is a sample available for download. Or the pricing there. The core pack is available now. The elective and full text pack will be coming in the coming months. Okay. So there's quite a lot of effort into that. Like I said, this is stuff I've been using for years, and Sarah kind of pushed me into doing this. Thank you, Sarah. Encouraged. She kind of gave me the prod and say, you need to sell this. So thanks to Sarah for that. But I
think anyone who's prepared for delivering courses, it takes a long time. So yeah, if you can benefit from Neil's experience, it's a good head start.
There's a lot of work in them, in the visuals, in the PowerPoints especially. So it's a visually rich sort of way of delivering training. Take a look at the sample. Like I said, give me a shout if you're interested. I can always do a demo for you as well. And also this time around as well, to field all your questions ongoing, not just as a one-off, but ongoing. I have set up a paid Patreon blog if you're interested. I will be publishing material quite frequently up there, whether it's tools and techniques that I use, in facilitation. You can obviously ask me questions about the book, obviously. I'll be doing more than a month. I'll be doing a monthly newsletter, but I think the tools and techniques will be more than one a month going up on there to supplement things or questions that you're coming up with now. And then also input into what you'd like to see in the future as well, not just mappings, but actual teaching material, what you'd actually find useful that we can make into a product. So that's available now. You can all hop over to Patreon and just go to Project Management in Practice, and you can sign up for that now if you want to continue the discussion. So those are all, like I said, additional teaching resources that I found useful, depending on the delivery and the group of people. Okay, and they're all source editable, so you can't remove the copyrights obviously, but you can put your own flavor of branding on there as long as you leave all the copyrights there. Okay, so that's kind of editable as well. You can add, take away as you see fit for your own deliveries. Okay, right, any questions on that little sales pitch from me? Okay, back to you, Sarah.
That's pretty much brought us through to the end of today's presentation. We just wanted to give you a brief overview of the main changes to the text, and we were getting a lot of questions about how we dealt with the PMBOK 6 and 7. So hopefully that's given everybody a bit more of an insight. As I said, the best way for you is to request a copy to have a look through yourselves, and then get in touch with your sales rep. Yeah. So if there's no more questions from anybody, was there anything else you wanted to say, Neil?
No, I'm just going to put, if everybody hangs on, I'm just going to put the PowerPoint stack, Sarah.
Okay, great. So all the links
into the chat window, so everybody can get a copy of these PowerPoints as well. People can just hang on 2 seconds. Okay, so that's been sent now. They appear in your chat windows. It is quite big, it's 7 meg, so it'll take a couple of minutes to upload, especially given where I work quite remotely on Wi-Fi internet here, so it'll take a little bit longer than you guys in the city.
That's come through now, Neil.
That's come through. Okay. Like I said, if there's any questions, just let us know. And we'll try and put together an FAQ and stick it somewhere. Sarah's got your details. I can always email it around or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So everyone's just saying thank you very much. Okay. So thanks to everybody for coming along on your lunch break on Friday.
Thanks all.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.